Well, there is this article that I published back in 2003 presenting the simulation argument.
Today, we're diving into the simulation hypothesis, a theory that cuts straight to the bone of our existence. The idea is this: everything you know, your late night dinner runs, the scars on your knuckles, the stars you squint through at night through the city haze, might be a computer-generated illusion, cooked up by advanced beings or a tech we can't even dream of. This isn't a late-night conspiracy scribbled on a bar napkin. It's a cold, hard question rooted in philosophy and hinted at by some science. We'll peel back the layers, from ancient thinkers to quantum labs, and face the implications head-on. Plato and Descartes, who first smelled a rat in reality's story? Are we a cosmic game? A history lesson? Or a battery for our robot overlords? We'll dig into the science, from the double-slit experiment to quantum entanglement, and hear from a mad prophet who swore he saw the code. Is God the coder? Are glitches like the Mandela Effect proof? Why is the universe so damn quiet? And what the hell is déjà vu? Each piece is a bullet in the chamber, but the gun's not fired yet. This is the hidden truth. We don't flinch, we reload. Let's go. The simulation hypothesis didn't just crawl out of a Silicon Valley server farm. It was born in the minds of thinkers long ago, who stared reality down and called its bluff. Maybe the first to hint that things aren't quite what they seem was Plato, 380 BCE, a Greek philosopher with a knack for seeing through the fog. In Book 7 of the Republic, he lays out the allegory of the cave. Imagine a group of prisoners shackled since birth in a dark cave. They're facing a blank wall, and behind them a fire burns, spitting light. Between the fire and the prisoners, there's a walkway. Puppeteers carry objects like statues, tools, even crude figures of animals. The fire casts shadows of these objects onto the wall, and for the prisoners, those shadows are the whole damn world. They name them, argue over them, build their lives around them, never knowing that there's a bigger game at play. But then one prisoner gets loose. His chains snap, and he stumbles towards the cave's mouth, each step a fight against the dark. Outside, the sun hits him like a freight train, blinding, searing, but real. He sees the world as it is, rivers carving through stone, trees clawing at the sky, colors so vivid they hurt. Plato calls this the form of the good, the ultimate truth. The sun, a beacon of what's real beyond the cave's lies. The shadows? Just distortions of objects he never knew existed. He scrambles back to tell the others, his voice raw with urgency. It's all a sham, he shouts. There's a world out there, real light, real life. But they don't want to hear it. They mock him, cling to their shadow world. It's a perfect mirror for us. How often do we reject the truth because it's too damn bright? Plato's allegory isn't just a thought experiment. It's a warning. The cave stands for the sensory world, the shadows for our limited perception, and the escape for the pursuit of knowledge through reason. For the simulation hypothesis, it's a haunting parallel. What if our reality is a constructed layer, a program we've bought into without a second thought? The fire could be a server humming in some higher dimension, casting pixels instead of shadows. The cave's walls might be the screen we're too blind to punch through. Plato didn't have computers, but he recognized the human capacity to be fully deceived. Now let's jump to 17th century France, where René Descartes picks up the torch and sets it ablaze. In 1641, he publishes Meditations on First Philosophy, a book that's less a meditation and more a full-on interrogation of reality. You can find the text for free online, and it's worth the read. Descartes doesn't trust his senses. They've lied too many times. Dreams feel real until you wake up. A mirage in the desert promises water until you're choking on sand. So he takes it to the extreme, imagining a malicious demon with limitless power and a twisted sense of humor. He writes, "I will suppose some malicious demon of the utmost power and cunning has employed all his energies in order to deceive me. I shall think that the sky, the air, the earth, Colors, shapes, sounds, and all external things are merely the delusions of dreams which he has devised to ensnare my judgment. This demon could fake everything, the stars, his own hands, even the fill of the quill in his grip. Descartes is relentless. He doubts his body, the world, even basic math. Could the demon make him think 2 + 2 = 5? But he finds one thing he can't doubt. I think, therefore I am. If he's doubting at all, he must exist as a thinking being. This keguto, as he calls it, becomes his anchor, the one truth the demon can't touch. He separates his mind and body, res cogutans, the thinking substance, versus res extensa, the extended physical stuff. The mind's real, but the body, the world, everything else could be part of the demon's deception. At the very least, it had to be considered. He reasoned that the only thing he could be absolutely sure of is his own consciousness. Later, he brings in a benevolent god to argue that clear perceptions aren't wholly deceptive, but the initial doubt lingers like smoke from Plato's cave fire. What if reality is a construct? A program designed to keep us in the dark? Plato and Descartes point to powerful ideas. The cave allegory demonstrates how our senses can be tricked, suggesting a higher reality we're blind to. Descartes' demon takes it further, painting a picture of deliberate deception, a reality engineered to fool us. Together, they frame the simulation hypothesis as a question of perception versus truth. For the hidden truth, this is where it starts. We don't accept the script we're handed. We tear it apart and look for the writer. Let's move into the core of the hypothesis. What kind of simulation could we be trapped in? 3 scenarios stand out, each with its own rules, motives, and shadows. First, the entertainment scenario. A cosmic game where we're the pawns. Imagine a civilization so advanced, they've got the tech to create simulations hosting conscious beings. Worlds as real as ours. They run these simulations for fun, a galactic version of reality TV. Picture the video game The Sims, but on a scale that makes your head spin. Players build universes, tweak lives, and watch the chaos unfold. Wars, heartbreak, pandemics, all for their amusement. Every tear we shed, every battle we fight, might be a cheap thrill for some higher dimensional audience sipping on cosmic whiskey. This idea isn't far-fetched. Modern games already mimic life. Grand Theft Auto lets you run wild. Civilization lets you build empires from dirt. No Man's Sky generates planets on the fly with algorithms. A 2020 study from Western Washington University on procedural generation showed games can craft lifelike worlds with minimal input. Think 18 quintillion planets in the game No Man's Sky. That's happening now. Imagine the technology a million years past today, and you've got tech simulating conscious minds, entire histories. The randomness of our world, plagues like the Black Death, revolutions like 1789 France, might be scripted drama, not chance. If our pain is their popcorn, every tragedy is a ticket stub. Every triumph, a plot twist. The second scenario, the ancestor simulation, straight from Nick Bostrom's 2003 paper. This one says future humans, or whatever we evolve into, might run simulations of their past to study their roots. We could be a digital 21st century, fed with historical data, population stats, climate records, cultural shifts, and even your morning commute. They let it play out, watching how we handled pandemics, wars, or social change. It's a research tool, a way to dissect evolution or avoid past mistakes. Anthropologists already use models to study ancient societies. The 2015 Mason project simulated Roman trade routes with startling accuracy. A universe-scale simulation would be the ultimate archive, replaying our timeline to refine their understanding or test the what-ifs. Moore's law since 1965 shows computing power doubles every 18 to 24 months. By 2100, we might simulate neural networks. By 3000, entire ecosystems. A 2018 MIT report on quantum computing predicts exponential growth could handle such complexity. A civilization even 1,000 years ahead could simulate billions of lives with the right hardware. What are the implications on free will? Every choice, your vote, Your career, your late night pizza order might be pre-programmed to match their data. A deterministic rerun with no room for deviation. Or could we be free to carve our own path, just within the confines of the simulation? Third, the Matrix scenario. This one says we've got real, biological bodies plugged into a simulated reality via neural interfaces. Machines harvest our bioelectric energy, keeping us alive in pods while feeding our brains signals to mimic a virtual 1999. The steak you taste, the city you walk through, it's all code. A lie draped over a ruined world. You're dreaming of skyscrapers while your body floats in goo, a battery for a machine's survival. The film paints a post-apocalyptic motive, but the core idea is a split between physical reality and perceived illusion. It's also possible the machines just decided we'd be happier in a simulation, giving us this world to escape the harsh realities of the real world we've never seen. This isn't just sci-fi fantasy. Brain-computer interfaces like Neuralink let pigs control devices with thought. A 2019 University of California study altered rats' perceptions via implanted electrodes, proving sensory manipulation is possible. Scale that to a global sim and you've got the Matrix. The difference here is stark. Entertainment and ancestor sims make us pure data, bits and bytes, no flesh. The Matrix gives us bodies, but we're still slaves, our minds chained to a dream world. Each scenario strips our autonomy. Game for pleasure, ancestor for knowledge, Matrix for survival. But all point to a reality where we're not the ones holding the reins.
Well, there is this article that I published back in 2003 presenting the simulation argument. This is an argument that tries to show that at least one of three propositions is true, although it doesn't tell us which of these three.
Nick Bostrom, a philosopher who's not afraid to stir the pot, drops Are You Living in a Computer Simulation? In 2003, a paper that could shatter your entire worldview in just a few pages. He lays out a trilemma, three possibilities, one of which has to be true, and the odds aren't in our favor.
The three propositions in question is first, that almost all civilizations at our stage of technological development go extinct before they reach technological maturity. So that's the first possibility.
First possibility. Advanced civilizations never reach the tech to create simulations with conscious beings. This could happen if they wipe themselves out. Think nuclear war like the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, where we came within minutes of a nuclear war. Or some other cosmic or ecological crisis that prevents humanity from advancing. Another hurdle might be computational limits. The Landauer limit, a thermodynamic barrier, caps how much data you can process before you're burning more energy than a star.
A second possibility is that there is a very strong convergence among all technologically mature civilizations, in that they all lose interest in creating ancestor simulations, as I call them. These would be very detailed computer simulations of people like their historical forebears. Detailed enough that the simulated people in these simulations would be conscious. So the second possibility is that they just lose interest in doing this.
The second possibility. They can create simulations but choose not to. Maybe it's ethics. Simulating sentient beings might be seen as slavery, a moral line they won't cross. AI ethics debates have been happening since the 2000s. Or it could be practical. Resources might not justify the cost. A civilization might need the energy of a small sun to run a universe sim, and they'd rather build Dyson spheres than play God. Cultural taboos could also play a role, like how we banned human cloning after Dolly the sheep in 1996. They might just say pass, it's not worth the effort.
And the third possibility is that we are almost certainly living in a simulation. So there's this argument that shows that one of these three is true. And the full argument involves some probability theory, but the basic idea can be grasped quite simply, which is that suppose it were the case that the first possibility did not obtain. So then some non-trivial fraction of civilizations at our stage eventually reach technological maturity. Then suppose the second possibility also does not obtain. So some non-negligible fraction of those mature civilizations are still interested in using the resources to running ancestor simulations. You can then show that because each mature civilization that devoted some resources to this purpose could run astronomical numbers of ancestor simulations, you can show that if the first two possibilities do not obtain, then there will be many, many more simulated people like us than there will be non-simulated people like us. In other words, almost all people with our kinds of experiences would be living inside simulations rather than outside them, if the first two possibilities are false. And conditional on that, we should therefore think we are probably one of the typical simulated people rather than one of the exceptional non-simulated people. So the structure of the argument then is that if you reject the first two hypotheses, then the third one follows, which then means you can coherently reject all three. That's the structure of the simulation argument.
The third possibility, they do create simulations, and the number of simulated realities eclipses base reality, and you and I are almost certainly in a simulation. Bostrom's argument is a numbers game. If a civilization can simulate conscious minds and runs many such simulations, the probability of any given mind being in the real world drops to near zero. Imagine one base reality and 1 million simulations. And by the way, the popular simulation game The Sims has sold over 200 million copies. The amount of simulated lives would far outnumber real lives. In this scenario, you're more likely to be a simulation than win a lottery while dodging lightning in a shark tank. The logic hinges on computational growth. Moore's law, showing computational power doubles every 18 to 24 months. A post-human civilization could run Sims on hardware we can't fathom. Quantum computers the size of planets, maybe. If they're running billions of Sims, we're statistically screwed. This isn't proof, it's probability, but it's a gut punch. Free will? Might be a mirage. Identity? Just a string of code. Purpose? Whatever the programmer wants. Bostrom's not here to comfort, he's here to make you sweat. Now we get to the science, starting with the double-slit experiment, a quantum riddle that's been baffling scientists since the 19th century and gives simulation theory a sharp edge. This isn't a parlor trick you pull at a dive bar. It's a window into reality's underbelly, suggesting it might be computed. Let's break it down because this is where the universe starts to look like a game. The story begins with Thomas Young in 1801. A British polymath trying to settle a centuries-old fight. Is light a particle, as Isaac Newton argued, or a wave, as Christian Huygens believed? Think of particles like the electrons in a current of electricity. Think of a wave like sound. There's a fundamental difference. Young sets up a simple rig, a light source, a barrier with two narrow slits, fractions of a millimeter apart, and a screen behind to catch the light. With one slit open, he gets a single bright band, as expected. But with both slits open, something wild happens. Alternating bright and dark bands, an interference pattern. The bright bands form where the wave peaks align, reinforcing each other. The dark ones where troughs cancel out. If light behaved as a particle, these bands wouldn't form. This proves light's wave nature, a landmark moment in physics, and it sets the stage for quantum chaos. Fast forward to the 1920s, and quantum mechanics takes the wheel. Scientists like Clinton Davison and Leston Germer adapt Young's experiment for electrons, subatomic particles with mass and charge, not massless light. They fire electrons from a cathode ray tube through two slits onto a phosphorescent screen. Classical physics says particles should hit in two bands, one per slit, like bullets through a target. But that's not what happens. They see the same interference pattern. Bright and dark fringes, even when firing electrons one at a time. Over thousands of shots, the pattern builds, as if each electron knows both slits are open. This duality, a wave when free, a particle when measured, shatters classical intuition. It's like flipping a coin that lands on its edge until you look, then picks heads or tails. Let's dissect the setup for clarity. The electron gun, a modified cathode ray tube, emits particles at controlled speed, thousands per second in early experiments, slowed to one at a time in later ones. The slits are precision cut, micrometers wide, forcing electrons into a constrained path. The detection screen, often coated with zinc sulfide, lights up where electrons land, building a visual record over time. With one slit open, you get a predictable spread, a single band with a Gaussian curve as particles scatter. Open both slits and the pattern shifts, interference bands, not two clumps. The 1927 Solvay Conference, where Niels Bohr and Werner Heisenberg squared off against Einstein, cemented the Copenhagen interpretation. The act of observation collapses the wave function, turning potential into a definite state. Reality, it seems, depends on measurement, and that's where things get slippery. The quantum explanation dives into the wave function, a mathematical construct describing a particle's probability distribution. When unobserved, the electron exists in superposition, a ghostly state where it's simultaneously passing through one slit, the other, or both. As it moves, the wave interferes with itself, creating the pattern. Peaks align for bright bands, troughs cancel for dark. Measure it, at the slits or on the screen, and the wave collapses to a particle, a single dot on the map. The electron explores every possible path, through the slits, around the lab, even through the walls in theory. It's a wave function summing all possibilities. How is this possible? Here's where the simulation hypothesis steps into the ring, gloves off. If our universe is a computer program, the double slit fits perfectly. Why calculate every electron's path if no one's watching? When unobserved, it's a wave, a placeholder, saving computational power, like a game that doesn't render the backside of a mountain until you climb it. This is exactly how video games work today. Observe it, and the sim snaps to a particle, loading the scene on demand. A 2012 experiment by Elaine Aspect and colleagues showed the observer effect holds even with delayed measurement. Deciding to measure after the photon passes still alters the pattern, suggesting time might be computed, not linear. The 2020 delayed choice quantum eraser experiment pushed this further, erasing which path information after detection retroactively restores the interference, implying a time structure where past and future are pre-rendered, adjusted on the fly. This makes no sense in the way we currently understand time. Many such experiments have yielded the same results with electrons, photons, atoms, and even large molecules like buckyballs, carbon-60. A 2019 study at the University of Vienna pushed this to molecules with 2,000 atoms, still showing wave behavior until measured. This universality suggests a fundamental principle, not a fluke. Simulation theorists like David Deutsch argue this efficiency mirrors computational design. Rendering only the observed reduces lag in a vast simulation. The double slit is a smoking gun. Either nature's playing a long con, or someone's cutting corners behind the scenes. Quantum entanglement, another piece of this cosmic puzzle, and it's a doozy. This phenomenon, first theorized in 1935 by Einstein, Podolsky, and Rosen, links particles so that measuring one instantly affects its pair, no matter how far apart they are. Yes, some particles can be paired so that what happens to one instantly happens to the other. Schrödinger coined the term entanglement in 1935, calling it quantum mechanics' most defining trait. In 1964, John Bell devised a test, Bell's inequalities, to see if this violates local realism, the idea that objects have definite states independent of measurement. Experiments like Elaine Aspect's in 1982 confirmed violations up to 42 standard deviations, proving instantaneous correlation across 12 meters. By 2017, Chinese scientists entangled photons over 1,200 kilometers via satellite, shattering classical limits with precision. Here's how it plays out in the lab. Take two electrons, entangle them so their spins are opposite, one up, the other down. Separate them across a lab, a city, or a continent. Measure one spin and the other's instantly matches, even before light could carry the signal. This spooky action at a distance, as Einstein grumbled, suggests a connection deeper than physics allows. Simulation theory steps in with a cold smirk. Is it just data syncing? Flip a bit in one node and the other updates instantly? No travel needed. This defies the known laws of physics and makes zero sense. Let's shift gears to the experiential side, psychedelics, the kind of substances that don't just open doors, but blow them off their hinges. Since the 1950s, LSD, psilocybin, and DMT have been studied for their effects on perception, and the results are a neon sign pointing to simulation theory. A 2021 Johns Hopkins study on 1,200 participants found that 60% reported a dissolution of self under psilocybin, describing reality as fragmented, walls turning to grids, people to hollow shells, the world as a flickering projection. Some felt they saw the code, the scaffolding behind the illusion. This aligns with simulation theory's idea of glimpsing the program.
In other words, it's a common theme in my writing that a dark-haired girl shows up at the door of the protagonist and tells him that his world is delusional, that there's something false about it, that his world is delusional, that there's something false about it, that there's something false about it. Well, this did finally happen to me. I even knew that her hair would be black. I had an actual complete sense of what she would look like and what she would say. She did appear, she was a total stranger, and she did inform me of this fact, that some of my fictional works were in a literal sense true. I wrote out these dreams in novel after novel, story after story. To name two in which this prior ugly present obtained most clearly, I cite The Man in the High Castle and my 1974 novel about the U.S. as a police state called Flow My Tears, the Policeman Said. I'm going to be very candid with you. I wrote both novels based on fragmentary residual memories of such a horrid slave state world. People claim to remember past lives. I claim to remember a different, very different present life. I know of no one who has ever made this claim before, but I rather suspect that my experience is not unique. What perhaps is unique is the fact that I am willing to talk about it. We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Then we've got Philip K. Dick, a sci-fi writer who didn't just imagine the future, he claimed to live it. In 1974, Dick said a pink laser beam, possibly a hallucination, revealed a black iron prison, a simulated reality trapping humanity. In his 1977 speech in Metz, France, he doubled down, claiming a higher intelligence, which he called VALIS, Vast Active Living Intelligence System, oversees us. His books like Valis and The Man in the High Castle twist reality into knots. What's real when the world's a lie? Dick's experience, while subjective, mirrors psychedelic reports, a cultural thread suggesting we're caged in a program and we can't even see the bars of our own prison. Now we face the big questions, the ones that linger like smoke in a backroom deal. First, is God the coder? Plato's form of the good, Descartes' God, they both point to a creator shaping reality. If this is a divine simulation, our world's a test. Maybe heaven is the base reality. Theologically, it fits Genesis. Let there be light could be the first line of code. But it raises ethical questions. Are we free, or pawns in a celestial script? Science can't answer this, but it's a lens that makes the hypothesis burn brighter. Then there's the Mandela Effect, collective false memories that feel like glitches in the system. Studies show 50 to 70% of people recall Berenstain Bears instead of Berenstain. Or Nelson Mandela dying in the 80s despite living until 2013. Simulation theory says these are patches to the system, updates leaving behind memories that never happened. Psychology offers memory distortion as an alternative, but the shared nature of these errors keeps the questions alive. The Fermi Paradox asks why the universe is so quiet. The Drake equation estimates 10,000 communicative civilizations in our galaxy, yet we find nothing when we look into the cosmos. Simulation theory has an answer. Why render aliens if we can't reach them? The universe might be single player. Extras cost too much to compute. Maybe we're alone because the coder didn't bother with the rest of the cast. And what about Déjà Vu? It hits like a skipped record. Same moment, same vibe, as if you've lived it before. A 2003 study found 60 to 70% of people experience it, often tied to temporal lobe activity. Or it's a loop, the simulation reusing frames to save memory. A 2022 study linked it to memory overlap, but the simulation angle persists. Time might not flow, it might repeat, a coded cycle we only occasionally notice. The hidden truth is rarely laid bare, but we've tracked the simulation hypothesis from Plato's cave to quantum labs, peeling back reality's skin, from shadows on a wall to electrons that dance when watched. From Bostrom's loaded odds to the eerie hum of Entanglement, we've wrestled with cosmic coders, psychedelic glitches, and a universe too quiet to trust. Free will, identity, purpose, all up for debate. Are we flesh and blood or lines of code? The shadows didn't confess, but they're squirming. This isn't the end, it's a reload. Truth doesn't hide forever. It waits for the next shot.